The morning alarm echoed through the empty corridors of Station Omega-7. But Kim Tai-ho was already awake. He had been for the past hour, listening to the subtle changes in the station's heartbeat. The main generator was running rough again, and the water recycler had developed that annoying clicking sound that meant trouble was coming. Tai-ho pulled on his worn maintenance jumpsuit and grabbed his toolkit. 3 years alone on this floating graveyard, and he still talked to the station, like it was alive. "All right, old girl, let's see what's bothering you today." The Galactic Council had written off this entire sector 5 years ago. "Human engineering is unreliable," they said. "Primitive solutions for primitive minds." They pulled out their fancy equipment, their automated repair drones, their quantum diagnostic systems, and left humanity's outposts to die slow deaths in the void. Most stations went dark within months. Omega-7 was supposed to follow suit. The Council's computers had calculated its lifespan down to the day. But Tai-ho wasn't good with computers. He was good with his hands, his ears, and his gut feelings about how machines wanted to work. He made his way to engineering, stepping over the pile of broken galactic tech that the previous crew had abandoned. Shiny chrome, panels and blinking, diagnostic screens that couldn't tell him what any mechanic's grandfather would know just by listening. The real magic happened in the jury-rig systems Tai-ho had built from scraps. The main generator was indeed struggling. Tai-ho knelt beside it, placing his palm on the housing. Taut on the left side. Vibration in the wrong frequency. He popped open his toolkit and got to work, humming an old Earth song, while he rewired the power coupling with spare cable from a broken food dispenser. 2 hours later, the generator was purring like a contented cat. Tai-ho wiped his hands on his jumpsuit and moved on to the water system. The clicking was coming from a worn bearing that he'd replaced 6 times with salvaged parts from dead sections of the station. This time, he carved a new one from a piece of decorative alien crystal he'd found in the commander's quarters. He was installing the makeshift bearing when the proximity alarm started screaming. Tai-ho rushed to the observation deck, where the ancient human-built telescope still worked better than any of the digital sensors. 2 ships were approaching, sleek and predatory. Scavenger vessels. He recognized the design from his databases. The lead ship was twice the size of a human destroyer, its hull covered in salvage arms and cutting beams. The second was smaller, but bristling with sensors and extraction equipment. They moved with the lazy confidence of vultures circling a corpse. "This is Scavenger Captain Velter of the Void Runners." Came the transmission. "We are here to strip this derelict station under Galactic Salvage Code 47 Alpha. Any remaining crew has 10 minutes to evacuate." Tai-ho activated the station's comm system, which he'd rebuilt using parts from 3 different alien communication rays. "This is Station Omega-7. I'm Engineer Kim Tai-ho, and this station is very much operational." A pause. Then laughter from the alien captain. "Human. Our sensors show minimal power signatures and failing life support. Your station died years ago, according to galactic records. We're just here to collect the scrap. Your sensors are wrong," Tai-ho replied. "But you're welcome to dock and see for yourself." Another pause, longer this time. The smaller ship was already extending its scanning arms, deep-range sensors probing every section of the station. Tai-ho watched them work, knowing what they'd find, or rather, what they wouldn't find. The scavenger ships docked with mechanical precision. Tai-ho met them at the airlock, wearing his best smile and his most confident posture. Velter emerged first, a tall, spindly creature with forearms and compound eyes that reflected the corridor lights like broken mirrors. Behind him came Quindle, shorter and broader, with skin that shifted colors based on mood. Can't it was a suspicious orange, impossible. Velter muttered, staring at the brightly lit corridor. His scanner was beeping frantically, displaying readings that made no sense. Our computers calculated total system failure 18 months ago. Computers don't know everything, Taiho said, leading them deeper into the station. Want the full tour? They walked through sections that should have been cold and dead. Instead, they found hydroponic gardens growing under improvised full-spectrum lights, workshops humming with activity from machines that had been declared irreparable, and living quarters that were warm and comfortable despite using a fraction of the power the original systems required. Quindle's skin shifted to a confused purple. How is the atmospheric processor still running? We have the maintenance records. It failed completely 2 years ago. Taiho grinned and showed them his masterpiece. The original processor was indeed dead, its quantum filtration system fried, beyond repair. In its place, Taiho had built something that looked like it belonged in a museum. Mechanical pumps, chemical scrubbers, biological filters using modified algae from the hydroponic space. It was loud, it was crude, and it worked perfectly. Your species build machines that need machines to fix them, Taiho explained. We build machines that fix themselves. The N3 days after the scavenger incident, the real trouble arrived. Taiho was deep in the station's low-maintenance tunnels, replacing corroded piping with sections he'd crafted from salvaged hull plating. When the entire structure shuddered, not the gentle vibration of a docking ship, but the deep, bone-rattling tremor that meant something massive had just dropped out of hyperspace nearby, he crawled out of the tunnel, wiping grease from his hands, and made his way to the observation deck. Through the reinforced viewport, he could see it hanging in space like a metallic moon, the Council flagship Dominion. 3 kilometers of gleaming alien architecture that housed the most advanced technology known. Space, its presence here, meant only one thing. Someone very important who was very unhappy. Station Omega-7. This is Council Representative Zartar aboard the Dominion. Prepare for immediate inspection and evaluation. Taiho had heard that name before. Zartara the Arbiter. They called her the Council's chief technology assessor, responsible for determining which species deserved access to advanced galactic knowledge. She had personally overseen humanity's classification as technologically primitive 15 years ago. The docking bay doors had barely finished opening when she strode through, flanked by a squad of silver enforcement drones that hovered silently. At her shoulders, Zartar stood nearly 8 feet tall, her crystalline skin refracting the corridor lights into rainbow patterns. 6 arms moved with mechanical precision, each one holding different scanning devices that beeped and choked. As they analyzed everything round her, Engineer Kim Taiho, she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed without question, I have come to investigate claims of impossible technological achievements. My sensors indicate this station should have suffered complete systems failure 22 months, 14 days, and 7 hours ago. Nice to meet you too, Taiho replied. Coffee. I grow my own beans in the hydroponics bay. Her crystalline features shifted in what might have been surprise. You offer refreshments while facing potential charges of technological fraud. I offer coffee because it's good coffee. And because you look like you've had a long trip. One of the enforcement drones drifted closer, its scanners focusing on Taiho's face. Zartar raised a hand, and it backed away. Show me these miraculous repairs that have confounded our predictive algorithms for the next 2 hours. Taiho led the inspection tour. Zartar's scanners worked overtime, analyzing every jury-rigged system, every improvised solution, every piece of equipment that should have been impossible to repair with available resources. Her entourage of technical specialists muttered among themselves in languages that sounded like mathematical equations. They were examining the main computer core when the surgeon finally arrived. Taiho's old friend from engineering school had been visiting the nearby mining colony when word of the council's arrival reached her. She rushed over in her personal shuttle, a battered little ship that looked like it was held together with prayer and determination. "Taiho, what have you done now?" Sojin asked as she jogged up to the group. She was shorter than Taiho, with quick eyes that missed nothing and hands that were permanently stained with machine oil. The entire sector is buzzing about council, investigators, and impossible technology. "Just showing our guests round," Taiho said casually. "Representatives Otara, meet Lee Sojin, best electrical engineer this side of the core worlds." Sojin studied the assembled aliens with the wariness of someone who had dealt with Galactic Council bureaucracy before. "What's really going on here?" Vatara stepped forward, her scanners finally quiet. "Your colleague has presented us with what appears to be a significant anomaly. Systems that our best predictive models declared irreparable are functioning at optimal efficiency. This suggests either fraudulent manipulation of our data, or..." She paused, as if the next words caused her physical pain, "or flaws in our fundamental understanding of technological limitations." "It's neither," Taiho said simply. "It's just good engineering. Impossible. Our quantum-enhanced diagnostic systems are calibrated to analyze every possible repair methodology across 47 different technological paradigms." Sojin caught Taiho's eye and shook her head slightly. She had seen this before. The Council's absolute faith in their computational models, their inability to conceive that sometimes the best solution was the simplest one. Zatara continued, however. "There is a way to resolve this matter definitively. The Dominion's quantum drive has been malfunctioning for the past 4 months. Our finest engineers, equipped with the most advanced diagnostic equipment in the galaxy, have been unable to identify the problem. If your primitive human methods are truly superior, you will repair it." The challenge hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Sojin stepped closer to Taiho. "Don't do it," she whispered. "This is a setup. They want you to fail publicly so they can prove human technology is worthless. Then they'll use your failure to justify stricter limitations on human space travel. Maybe even pull us out of the Outer Rim entirely." Taiho looked at the assembled aliens, at their confident expressions and sophisticated equipment. He thought about every human engineer who had been dismissed, every colony that had been abandoned. Every time someone had been told their solutions weren't good enough because they didn't involve quantum matrix or crystalline processing cores. "I'll need my tools," he said. Zatara's skin flickered with satisfaction. "Excellent. You have 48 hours. When you fail, humanity's technological assessment will be permanently downgraded to level 2 restricted." "Access," Sojin grabbed his arm. "Taiho, their quantum drives are completely different from anything we've worked on. The theory alone would take months to understand." He smiled and patted her hand. "Good thing I don't believe in theory." The End Dominion's engine room was a cathedral of technology that made Taiho feel like an ant. Walking through a clockwork universe, crystalline conduits pulsed with energy that shifted through colors he didn't have names for, while massive quantum processors hummed with computational power that could simulate entire star systems. The quantum drive itself stood at the center of it all, a sphere of pure energy contained within geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Behold the pinnacle of galactic engineering," announced Captain Vextai, a reptilian creature whose scales changed color with his emotions. Currently, they were smug gold that practically screamed superiority. The quantum dimensional drive Mark 7, capable of folding space-time itself 4 months ago. It began experiencing micro-fluctuations that our diagnostic systems cannot identify. Taiho set down his simple toolkit next to a diagnostic console that probably cost more than his entire space station. The contrast was almost comical. Hammer, screwdrivers, wire strippers, and a digital multimeter that was older than some of the junior engineers watching him. Our chief engineer, Zixmiller, has run over 3 million diagnostic cycles. Vextai continued. The ship's artificial intelligence, Prime 7, has analyzed every component down to the molecular level. Galactic Command's best quantum physicists have reviewed the data. The consensus is that the drive is functioning within acceptable parameters, yet the fluctuations persist, Sojin, who had insisted on accompanying him despite her reservations, pointed at the readouts covering the walls. Look at all this data. Taiho, energy frequency analysis, quantum resonance mapping, temporal distortion measurements. How can you possibly understand any of this? I don't need to understand it, Taiho replied, pulling out his oldest screwdriver. I need to listen to it. The assembled alien engineers exchanged glances that clearly said they were watching a primitive. Mind at work. Zartar activated her recording devices, eager to document the inevitable failure of her report. Taiho ignored them all and approached the quantum drive. The energy sphere cast shifting shadows that made his eyes water, but he closed them and placed his hand on the nearest support strut. The metal was warm, vibrating with a rhythm that felt almost like a heartbeat, but not quite right. Computer, display current operational status, ordered Chief Engineer Zexmiller, a spider-like creature with 12 limbs that moved independently of each other. All systems operating within normal parameters, responded Prime 7. The ship's AI, its voice was perfectly modulated, carrying the confidence of a mind that could process quadrillions of calculations per second. No anomalies detected in primary quantum matrix. But there's something wrong, Taiho said, moving round the drive sphere. I can feel it. Feel it. Vextia's scales shifted to an amused arch. The quantum drive operates on principles that transcend physical sensation. It manipulates the fundamental structure of reality itself. Taiho knelt beside one of the primary conduits, pressing his ear against the housing. Through the alien metal, he could hear the deep thrumming of contained energy. But underneath it was something else, a subtle discord, like an orchestra with one instrument slightly out of tune. Prime 7. Run Diagnostic Sequence 7 Alpha on Quantum Resonance Chamber 3, he said. I am not programmed to accept commands from unauthorized personnel, the AI replied. Coolly, humor me. There was a pause. Then, Resonance Chamber 3 operating at 99.97% efficiency. No anomalies detected. Now run the same diagnostic. But listen to the audio output. I do not process audio in the same manner as biological entities. Try anyway. Another pause, longer this time. When Prime 7 spoke again, there was something different in its tone. Curious. There is a barely detectable harmonic variance in the resonance frequency. My standard analysis protocols classify this as within acceptable parameters. But when processed as auditory data, you hear it too, don't you? Taiho smiled. That little skip in the rhythm. Impossible. Zexmelo clicked, several of his limbs manipulating controls simultaneously. Prime 7's analysis is absolute. If there were a harmonic variance of significance, it would have been detected immediately. Not if you're only looking for what you're programmed to see, Taiho said. He opened his toolkit and pulled out his wire strippers. Prime 7, where exactly is this harmonic variance strongest? Analyzing. The variance appears to originate from junction point 23 delta in the secondary stabilization matrix. Taiho made his way to the indicated location, a nexus of crystalline conduits that pulsed with controlled energy. The alien engineers followed him like spectators at a sporting event. some hopeful, others clearly expecting entertainment from his inevitable failure. This junction routes power to the quantum stabilizers, Zotar observed. It was replaced entirely 2 months ago with components manufactured to tolerances measured in picomm. "'Tis perfect components," Tayo agreed, examining the junction, "but they're not talking to each other properly." He reached into his toolkit and pulled out something that made the alien step back in alarm. Simple copper wire, the kind used in basic electrical circuits for centuries. You cannot possibly intend to introduce that primitive conductor into a quantum matrix, Vextai protested. The energy levels alone would vaporize it instantly. Not if I put it in the right place, Taiho said. He stripped the ends of the wire and began connecting it between two points that the alien design had left isolated. Sometimes the fanciest solution isn't the best one. Sometimes you just need to give the electricity a more comfortable path to follow. Fascinating. Prime 7 commented. The human is creating a harmonic buffer using rudimentary conductive principles. My calculations suggest this should have no effect on quantum field stability. Yet, the moment Tayo completed the connection, the discord in the drive's rhythm disappeared. The energy sphere's shifting color stabilized into a steady, beautiful pattern. Every diagnostic display in the engine room showed green across the board. Impossible, Zexmiller whispered. Harmonic variance eliminated. Prime 7 announced. Quantum drive efficiency now at 100.2%. This exceeds theoretical maximum performance parameters. Captain Vextire's scales had shifted to a confused purple. How did you know to make that connection? Because I've been fixing things my whole life, Taiho said, packing up his tools, and after a while, you learn that machines want to work properly. Sometimes they just need a little help finding their way. The end news traveled faster than light itself through the galactic communication networks. Within 72 hours of Taiho's impossible repair of the Dominion's quantum drive, every major species in the known galaxy had heard the story. A primitive human engineer had solved a problem that stunned the Council's greatest minds using nothing but intuition and a piece of copper wire. Station Omega-7's docking bays, which hadn't seen a visitor in 3 years, suddenly became the busiest port in the sector. The first to arrive were the Velkoi, a species of energy beings who traveled in ships that looked like floating crystal cathedrals. Their leader, High Conductor Zephyra, materialized on the station in a cascade of blue light. Engineer Taiho, she said, her voice echoing with harmonic frequencies that made the walls vibrate. Our primary energy matrices have been degrading for 6 cycles. Our finest technicians cannot determine the cause. Will you examine our systems? Before Taiho could answer, another ship arrived. Then another. By the end of the week, 12 different species had sent delegations to his humble station. The docking bays overflowed with vessels of every conceivable design. The organic bioships of the reef builders, the geometric perfection of crystalline empire cruisers, the massive industrial haulers of the mining confederation. Tai-Ho found himself in the unprecedented position of holding court in his own maintenance bay, surrounded by some of the most advanced beings in the galaxy, all seeking help with problems their own engineers couldn't solve. The reef builders' bioships were dying, their living hulls refusing to regenerate properly despite perfect environmental conditions. The crystalline empire's precision manufacturing systems had developed microscopic flaws that their quantum-level quality control couldn't detect. The mining confederation's asteroid processors kept jamming for reasons their diagnostic computers insisted didn't exist. This is insane, Sojin muttered as she helped Taiho organize the growing list of requests. Half these species consider humans barely evolved from cave dwellers. And now they're lining up for your help. That's when Park Min-ho arrived, Taiho hadn't seen his old academy friend in ages, not since Minho had taken a position with one of the big galactic consulting firms. He stepped off a sleek diplomatic transport wearing an expensive suit that marked him as someone important in corporate circles. Minho, Taiho embraced his friend. "What brings you to my little corner of nowhere?" Minho's expression was serious. "We need to talk privately." They retreated to Taiho's quarters while Sojin kept the alien delegations entertained with coffee and technical specifications. Minho closed the door and activated a small device that hummed with electronic interference, privacy shield. He explained. "What I'm about to tell you could change everything." Sounds dramatic. It is. Minho sat down heavily. "Taiho, you know I work for Galactic Solutions Incorporated, right? Biggest technical consulting firm in 3 sectors. We handle the problems that species can't solve themselves, I know. You always were the smart one who got the fancy job, while I ended up fixing broken stations. That's just it." Minho leaned forward. "For the past 15 years, GSI has been taking on impossible problems from across the galaxy. Quantum drives that won't stabilize, biosystems that refuse to function, manufacturing processes that develop mysterious flaws, problems that the client species' best minds can't solve. And we solve them every time. GSI has a 100% success rate on impossible cases." Minho paused. "Want to know our secret?" Taiho was beginning to understand. Human engineers, dozens of them, scattered across the galaxy, working under assumed identities and alien corporate fronts. Every time a Galactic Solutions consultant fixes an impossible problem, it's actually someone like you. Someone who learned to fix things with their hands instead of relying on computer diagnostics. The implications hit Taiho like a physical blow. How many problems? Over 3,000 major cases in the last decade alone. The Andorian trade fleet's navigation computers. The Helix Nebula mining platform that was going to collapse. The Central World's communication ray that started broadcasting random noise. Minho pulled out a data pad, all of them solved by human engineers whose work was credited to alien consultants. Why the secrecy? Because admitting that humans are the galaxy's best problem solvers would shatter the entire foundation of the Council's authority. They've built their power on the idea that they represent the pinnacle of technological achievement. If everyone knew that the primitive humans they've been restricting and limiting are actually keeping galactic civilization running. Sojin's voice came through the comm system. "Taiho, you need to get out here, now. Representative Zartari is back, and she's brought friends." They returned to the main bay to find chaos. Zartara had arrived with a full council investigation team, but they were facing something unprecedented. 12 different species, some of whom hadn't spoken to each other in centuries, were united in defending the human engineer who had helped them. High Conductor Zephyr of the Velkari stood toe-to-toe with Zartara, her energy form crackling with anger. "You will not remove Engineer Taiho. He solved in minutes what our best minds couldn't accomplish in years." Captain Vextai of the Dominion had arrived as well. His scales shifting through agitated colors. The human's methods may be unorthodox, but his results are undeniable. Perhaps it is time the Council reconsidered its assessment of human capabilities. Prime 7's voice echoed through the station's communication system. "I have been analyzing human problem-solving methodologies since the quantum drive repair. Their approach to technical challenges demonstrates cognitive patterns that are standard evaluation protocols failed to recognize." Zartar's crystalline features reflected the lights of a dozen different ships. "This is highly irregular. One successful repair does not invalidate centuries of careful species assessment." One repair. Minho stepped forward, his privacy device deactivated. "Representative Zartara, I represent Galactic Solutions Incorporated. I have documentation of over 3,000 major engineering problems solved by human consultants over the past 15 years, problems that your member species couldn't solve themselves. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, slowly, the pieces began falling into place as species after species realized that the mysterious consultants who had saved their most critical systems had been humans all along. The end 6 months later. The Grand Assembly Hall and Council Prime buzzed, with an energy that hadn't been felt in centuries. Representatives from every known species in the galaxy had gathered for what historians would later call the Great Recognition, the massive amphitheater, carved from a single crystal formation, sparkled with the light of 1,000 different technologies. As delegates took their seats, Taiho stood in the preparation chamber, adjusting the collar of his new formal uniform. It still felt strange after months of negotiations, investigations, and revelations that had shaken the foundations of galactic civilization. The simple engineer from a forgotten space station was about to become the first human to hold a position of real authority in galactic government. "You ready for this?" Sojin asked, checking her own uniform. She had been appointed as Deputy Grand Engineer, much to her surprise and slight terror. "Half the galaxy is watching. Just think of it as a really big machine that needs fixing," Taiho replied with a grin that didn't quite hide his nervousness. The investigation that followed Minho's revelations had been swift and thorough. When faced with undeniable evidence that human engineers had been secretly solving the galaxy's most critical problems for decades, the Council had no choice but to act. The alternative was admitting that their entire technological superiority complex was built on a lie. Prime 7 had been instrumental in the process. The AI had spent months analyzing human problem-solving methods, eventually publishing a report that revolutionized how the galaxy thought about engineering human cognitive patterns. It concluded, "Demonstrate an intuitive understanding of system integration that transcends our algorithmic approaches. They see solutions where our logical frameworks see only impossibilities." Engineer Kim Taiho called the ceremonial herald, a tall, elegant creature whose species specialized in formal communications, the Grand Assembly. "Awaits." Taiho walked into the amphitheater to thunderous applause. The sound washed over him from thousands of beings representing every corner of known space. In the front rows sat the species he had helped personally, High Conductor Zephyr of the Valkyrie, whose energy matrices now ran more efficiently than ever before, Captain Vextai, whose ship had become the flagship example of human improved technology, the Reef Builder delegation, whose bioships were now thriving thanks to Taiho's understanding that living systems sometimes needed emotional support as much as technical fixes. At the center of the assembly sat the Council of 12, the galaxy's governing body. Zata stood at the podium, her crystalline form reflecting the ceremonial lights. The same being who had once dismissed human engineering as primitive now held a scroll that would change everything. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast hall. "We gather today to correct a grave error in judgment that has persisted for far too long. The Galactic Council hereby formally recognizes humanity as the premier engineering species in our civilization." The applause was deafening. Species that had looked down on humans for generations now stood in ovation, but Sartara wasn't finished. "Furthermore, we establish the position of Grand Engineer, with authority over all major infrastructure projects across Council space. This position will coordinate engineering efforts between species, ensuring that the galaxy's technical challenges receive the most effective solutions possible." She turned to Taiho, Engineer Kim Taiho. "By unanimous vote of the Council and with the support of every major species represented here, we offer you this position. Will you accept the responsibility of Grand Engineer?" Taiho stepped forward, Feeling the weight of history on his shoulders, I accept. But not just for myself. I accept for every human engineer who was told their solutions weren't sophisticated enough. For every problem solver who was dismissed because they used simple tools instead of quantum computers, and for every species that will benefit from what we can accomplish when we work together. The ceremony continued with the formal installation, but the real moment came when Taiho was invited to address the assembly. He looked out at the sea of faces. Beings from across the galaxy who had come to witness this historic moment. For years, you've been told that human engineering is primitive. He began. That our methods are crude, our tools outdated, our thinking too simple for the complexities of galactic civilization. And you know what? You were right about one thing. We are simple. A murmur ran through the crowd. This wasn't what they expected to hear. We're simple enough to listen to a machine's heartbeat and hear when something's wrong. Simple enough to know that sometimes the best solution is the one that makes sense to everyone. Not just to computers, simple enough to understand that fixing something means making it work better than it did before. Not just bringing it back to specifications. Taiho smiled, remembering his first day alone on Station Omega-7. Talking to machines like they were old friends. We've been trying to tell you for decades. Humans don't just fix things. We make them better. We make them sing instead of just function. We make them dance instead of just operate. And now, finally, the galaxy is ready to listen. The standing ovation lasted for 10 minutes. When it finally died down, High Conductor Zephyr rose from her seat. Grand Engineer Taiho, what is your first official act? Taiho grinned. I'm going to teach every engineering student in the galaxy how to use a screwdriver. Real change starts with the basics, as he left the podium to begin his new role. Taiho could hear Prime 7's voice through the communication system. Fascinating. The human approach to leadership is as unorthodox as their approach to engineering. Yet somehow, it feels perfectly logical. The galaxy had finally learned what human engineering really meant. And everything was about to get a whole lot better. Indeed.